Hello and welcome to the Godless Family webcast. My name is Amanda Hayes and I am hosting today, and with me is my co-host Aubrey Adrianson.
Hi.
Sorry, I don't have like a say hello. I just get right in there and do it. And we are back. We had a brief hiatus while we took care of some personal stuff and got ready for you guys so that we had some great information, but now we are back and we are going to talk about our place in the animal kingdom today, and we've got a couple of different topics that we're going to go through. And I think, Aubrey, what we were going to do is start talking about how we kind of fit in as far as, you know, our place and how we consider ourselves among other species and creatures. Does that sound right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, this topic I presented to Amanda because my daughter was talking to me about animals and humans and how that all kind of work together. And even though she has not been indoctrinated, she doesn't have a religion, she still holds on to this idea that humans are somehow above other animals, that we're not really animals. And I had an interesting conversation with her about it, and I thought, you know, this comes up a lot. Not only does it come up in the religious community, especially Christians or people that of the Abrahamic religions that believe they are, you know, the special creation of God, but it does come up in other non-religious communities. And it's kind of that same attitude that we're not really humans because we have these higher order thinking skills and we're better able to manipulate our environment and to think critically about what's happening and invent things. So therefore we are somehow special and above all of this. And I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's correct. And Amanda and I are going to kind of present some of those reasons or some arguments why we are not above other animals on this planet. And we wanted to start with, and let me know, Amanda, if you want to jump in. We wanted to start with today just kind of briefly going over evolution and speciation. I know that most of our listeners, if not all, have a pretty firm grasp on evolution, or at least a very basic understanding of evolution and speciation, but I think it is important to at least cover when we're having this conversation. And so evolution is the change that that happens over time, and there's a lot happening with evolution. And I did include a link on the website, and it will be with this video when I post it on the website as well. Just everything that scientists currently know about evolution in the Berkeley website called Evolution 101, and it goes over some of the ways species change over time and then become new species, which we call speciation. Genetic mutation is definitely one of those forces that drive change. Oh gosh. Natural selection is another force that drives change. And so a lot of different things can happen to cause a species to change over time, including extinction events or near extinction events that I think we'll get to in a little bit. But what happens with speciation, when we're talking about speciation, we're talking about we'll have an organism and it changes at some point. It changes through time, and at some point it changes so much that it's no longer this particular species that it began with. It's a new species. And this is another thing they talk about in this Evolution 101 website is the definition that's used the most to differentiate one species from another is the ability to interbreed. And so once an organism can no longer breed with another organism, then that organism is outside of its species. There are some problems with that definition, and they talk about that on the website. But I don't want to go into that. I do want to kind of stay within that because we are going to focus a lot on animals and not so much on bacteria and plants for this conversation. Okay, did I miss anything really important yet, Amanda?
Not that I'm aware of. I was going to talk a little bit about human evolution and kind of how it has, my dog scratched at the door, how it can parallel evolution between some animals. But kind of like you said, we're talking a little bit more about animals, so I think I might skip that for now.
No, I want you to talk about that because that was something that I included in the links on the website. Is I think, especially when we're talking about these attitudes that people have that humans are somehow better or a species that we're not really animals, I think it's really important to briefly cover human evolution. And so if you would like to do that.
Oh God, no! A tall order. Oh man, let me see if I can remember. Well, one thing that I was reading that I thought was really important for people to know, and especially that I wanted to talk to my kids about, is the idea of human evolution and how a lot of people are saying that as humans we're done evolving. Like, this is the desired state. This is where we are. Nothing's going to change from here. And there's a lot of people, even like scientists, who are saying, yeah, we're done evolving. This is where we need to be. But there are also a lot of other sources I saw that says that we're not, and that we have been up until very recently, even in the last century, as far as our, immunities to diseases and a lot of different things, honestly. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I just thought that was really important to note that we're not at the perfect state as humans. We're not done evolving for the rest of time.
Yes, we are not done evolving, and there's a lot of evidence for that. And that's something that I actually have these kinds of conversations with my daughter all the time because she's fascinated by it. Wisdom teeth is a really good example. Humans born my generation and generations after are not producing wisdom teeth because we don't need them anymore. Because wisdom teeth were kind of they were like that third set of molars, basically, because we were chewing on raw meat and didn't have proper dental care, and now we're cooking our food and we have much better dental care and much better awareness of dental care. Those molars that third set of molars no longer relevant. We don't need them anymore. And for the unlucky people that they actually do come in, they have to have them removed because they have too many teeth in their mouth. So I'm a good example of that. I had my top molars came in, but not my bottom molars. And the last time I was x-rayed at the dentist, my dentist said it's not going to happen. They're not going to come in.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I got all 4 of my molars, so that's really interesting. Yeah, I had to get them out last year. That was a big pain. But yeah, I love that example. I was just telling my son about that the other day. Something that's just I thought was amazing about evolution is that, before, like you said, we needed those teeth because we're chewing on hard things, raw vegetables and roots and stuff like that. And so I guess what would happen is some of those back teeth would fall out. Is that right? They would just fall out, and then that's why you would need the new ones to be growing in, so that you could still be chewing that. And the fact that they're not coming in at all in some people, I think, is such great evidence of the way that humans are changing. So, yeah, I like that.
And another one that I really like, and it's one that we can all observe right now. Each generation is getting taller.
Oh, really?
So I am about a half-inch taller than my mom, and she's taller than her mom. And then the same with my father. My father is taller than his father. My brother is taller than him. And then I expect my son to be taller. And that's nutrition. As it has more to do with nutrition. But the thing with evolution is there's more going on than just that, because these are environmental factors that are affecting our body and the way our body responds. But over time, you're going to see that those things start to manifest in natural selection. So in the United States, taller is considered more attractive, especially tall men. And so then those natural selection, that starts to kick in, and then it becomes genetic at some point that you're genetically taller. And I think what I think is interesting about humans, though, is I think we're at this point where those kinds of things, taller, shorter, whether or not you have your wisdom teeth, natural selection isn't going to play a big role in how we evolve, because as a society we are protecting each other, and there's more to it in selecting a mate than how well they can survive in the wild in our society now. But we are definitely still evolving and still changing, and we can see that. Like I said, the height thing, you can see that from generation to generation in your family.
I also had heard that similar to the taller thing is due to improved nutrition, women are menstruating a lot sooner in their life than they were before, that it's starting at a younger age, and that's, again, due to improved nutrition. So I thought that was interesting, too.
I haven't heard that, but I do know that I have heard of cases of girls menstruating at 10 instead of 13 or 14. But I haven't heard why, so that'll be something for me to check out later and look up, because that's interesting. Larger breasts due to nutrition and our fatty diets. Has nothing to do with your ability to lactate, though, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who do worry about that, because don't worry about it.
But the other thing about the evolution of humans that I think is really important, and this comes up a lot for atheists who are communicating with creationists, is the idea of the common ancestor. We do have a common ape ancestor. Good night, Mom. Sorry. That's been pretty well documented, and you can go on to various websites and see the lineage. And so the whole idea, well, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Well, you have to understand evolution and speciation in order to get the answer that you need from that question. But there is a common ancestor, and I think that's a language we need to start using when we talk about evolution. To anyone, but especially creationists, because creationists kind of view evolution as this it's linear. There's this one line, but one of the things, again, on the Evolution 101 website it talks about, no, it's more like branches in a tree, and you need to think of evolution as this tree that branches out, and some branches stop, and others keep going and become twigs, and the main trunks or the main parts of the tree are your common ancestors. And so I think that's really important, especially when we talk about human evolution. Yes, we are descended from apes. Yes, we are a part of the animal kingdom, and we can observe that. We can look at the fossil record, and it's pretty well documented.
So would you say then, as far as the human evolution is compared to animals, that kind of is natural selection? That's how we got to this point, is kind of branching off from the other species, right? And I don't know if our brains were getting larger, but at least we were getting smarter, and that's kind of how we got to the point of being able to invent things and develop technology, right?
Oh man, I have to find this show. I know it's on Netflix, so I've watched it, but they talk about that. They talk about one of our ape ancestors, which was probably a hairy upright ape, and there are many of those back in our lineage, many different species of that kind of ape back in our lineage. But what happened was they started eating meat. Because if you look at many of the apes and monkeys that are still around, many of them are plant eaters. Some of them will eat meat every once in a while, but most of their diet consists, the majority of their diet consists of plant, maybe insects. But something happened where our ancestors began eating meat and began eating fat, and because of that, our brains began to grow because our brains are made of fat and water, basically. And so that is one of the reasons why we have these bigger brains and these higher order brain functions. But I don't think anyone's come up with a really good explanation as to why we're able to do so much more than a gorilla as far as inventing things, coming up with philosophical arguments, and all of these higher order brain functions that we can do. I haven't read any reasons how or why that happened.
Okay.
But I did. But the meat thing, it was huge. And if you think about it, all the predators that in the world, the cat predators like the lion and the cheetah and the tiger, the sharks, they have some problem-solving skills that they can demonstrate, and their brains are bigger, and that's because scientists believe it's because they're eating meat and they're getting fat in their diet, which then nourishes their brain.
Wow.
So I didn't expect to talk about that. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, I'm glad we did, though. I think it's really important.
And so the whole point of going over that is, like I said before, we do fit in the animal kingdom. We are a part of it. We're special. We're different. We have language and not just the ability to communicate, but a very complex language. Again, we can build things, invent things, right? We have a written language as well as a spoken language, things that other animals don't seem to have in our world. But we do fit in, and we are a part of that. And Amanda, I would like, if you don't mind, you had said something about our place on the food chain, and I think that's where I want to go next.
Okay. Well, I will make sure I know exactly what you're talking about. But you're talking about when we were first initially emailing about this, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. One of the things I think that just kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier as far as humans being superior beings, that I noticed a lot of people just automatically assume that humans are at the top of the food chain, and all of the evidence that I saw was that that wasn't true, that we actually, I think we're like in the middle, somewhere between two obscure animals that I never would have thought. But yeah, that's essentially what I just thought it was an interesting tidbit, that even though we have all of these tools and we're still continuing to encroach on the rest of the environment and taking it over as ours, we're still technically not at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to point out that we are a part of the food chain. And so that's, again, we are a part of the animal kingdom. We are a part of our ecosystem. We are a part of what's happening on this planet, and that includes being a part of the food chain. And I would like to even just kind of insert that nobody's actually at the top, because if you start putting in bacteria and viruses, those can kill us, and we have no defense except for what we know as far as medicine goes, or health. Like, you know, if you get a cold, you know, you need to drink lots of fluids and get lots of rest, and if you don't, you know, that could turn into flu, which could then turn into pneumonia or bronchitis or whatever, and then you could possibly die from those things. But if we're going to go one-on-one with a tiger, I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win. And so as far as our physical abilities and what we bring to the table as just an animal without our guns, without our knives, if a hungry tiger sees me walking through the forest, I pretty much don't have a chance. And the same with like a shark. Sharks typically don't attack people swimming in the ocean, but if a hungry shark will, and you're not going to win that battle.
Right.
And so you're not at the top of the food chain. And I would say that nobody really is. A shark can be brought down by, well, there are whales that eat meat. Again, viruses, bacteria. We all have an opportunity to kill each other.
That's interesting when you put it in terms like that, as far as when you don't have any of the tools that we've fashioned for ourselves, and it's just you against that other animal. That really puts it into perspective that, yeah, we, like you said, just as far as size and strength, you would not win.
And I've heard some people argue, well, we've evolved these brains that helped us to make these weapons, therefore we are at the top because I can go out and I can kill this tiger or this lion or this alligator or this shark. And I would say, well, then you still have to know how to use the tool, and you have to know how to engage in combat with that animal. So I would say, even if I had a rifle in the savannah and a cheetah was coming at me, I'm not so sure of my chances. And so I've heard that argument before, and I would still say no. We're still definitely a part of the animal kingdom. We are fashioning tools for ourselves, of course, but other animals are too. Their tools aren't as fancy, but they certainly are, and monkeys are a great example of animals that are fashioning tools for themselves.
Interesting.
And so, I want to kind of bring this around. We do fit in the animal kingdom. We are a part of this world. We are a part of our ecosystem, and that's kind of like the hot topic tonight. Is the ecosystem and how we fit into the ecosystem. And pre-show, the man and I were talking about this, and I think we both, for the most part, agree on what we're about to say, I guess. Is there anything you want to say?
As far as like the whole extinction thing and preservation, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I just feel like I'm talking too much, and I should let you talk.
You know what? You know so much more than me, so I'm just gonna sit here and look pretty and let you do the talking now. Yeah. So is that kid? Do you want to go over that right now? I think that would be great. So I was talking to a man earlier, and we were talking, just some man, a random man on the street, and we were talking about humans' impact on the environment around them, and our impact, like you said, on the ecosystem and on a lot of the animals that are close to extinction for a variety of reasons. Whether it's just of natural causes or poaching or being hunted, even if it's just for food. For the people that live around those species, there is a lot of it that's impacted by humans specifically. And so this gentleman, this sir, was saying that he felt that he wasn't sure we should be funneling so much money into the preservation of all of the species, ever, essentially. Every species that we can get our hands on and try to preserve. He thought that, and I'm paraphrasing, but he thought that a lot of money could be spent toward more humanitarian efforts, like we were talking about before the show, as far as getting clean water in developing countries, access to education for children, technology, food, anything like that, in order to preserve our own species and better humans for their preservation, rather than putting a lot of money into preserving animals, maybe for a sole reason that we want our kids to grow up and be able to see a rhino in the zoo or in the wild, because, you know, maybe people would think of that as kind of a selfish reason. But you and I, like we said before the show, we feel like there are a lot of other really good reasons to preserve as many life forms as possible, whether or not you see a direct benefit to humankind. And one of the things that I had said just preliminary before I even did any research into it is for research, right? Because the more that you research and learn about animals and how their brains and their bodies work and how, again, they fit into the animal kingdom, that's going to give us more knowledge about our place and about the other animals and their places in it. So I think that that would be a good reason for it. And another reason is how they fit into the ecosystem of where they live, or where their habitat is. And I know you had some really good examples about that, so you should talk about that.
So the example that I gave Amanda pre-show is the example of insects. Or actually, let's just go with birds. Let's say you have this kind of, you're killing off birds for whatever reason, and this particular bird eats insects. And you kill off this population of birds, you drastically reduce this population of birds in an area, and what happens is that insect population then increases. Now, depending on the type of insect this bird eats, that could impact then maybe your plant life, because maybe this insect eats plant life in the area. And so then your plant life becomes eaten and worn down. You have less foliage, and it could be foliage from plants that we eat as people, or foliage of plants that the animals that we eat are eating. So then basically the animals that would eat that foliage then reduce because there's less food. And so even if you can't see that direct impact, it is there. It will eventually catch up with you at some point. And so preserving an animal population is very important. And where was I going with this? And one thing I was telling Amanda is my focus as a conservationist isn't so much preserving that one animal, but preserving that habitat that that animal lives in and thrives in, and just understanding the interconnectivity that that animal shares with their habitat, and making sure that these are large habitats for that, so that animal can thrive in. And then once you have that, then you can go into these efforts to there's a word for it, and I can't think of the word, but to increase the population of that endangered species. So you might start inseminating tigers and releasing them back into that habitat so that they can repopulate and not become endangered. And so that's, as a conservationist, that's my focus. That would be my focus. And there's so many other things that's happening with that too that we don't even think about. Animals and plant life impact our water quality and our air quality and soil erosion and all these things that do over time affect us. And so again, we are a part of what's happening on this earth, and I don't think we're above any of it. And one of the things that Amanda brought up is, because we are a part of this ecosystem and what's happening on our planet, how can we then take responsibility, or what are our obligations as life forms on this planet to preserve that ecosystem, to preserve, to kind of reduce the rate at which animals are becoming extinct on our planet. And yeah, so Amanda,
Well, yeah, that is a tough nut to crack, honestly. I know before the show we talked about the idea of going green and how it's really good, and it's almost like it's a buzzword, especially, for not just for people but for corporations. It's a buzzword, and so it can mean a variety of different things. You had mentioned that going green for one person could mean buying a Prius. For another person, it could mean that they recycle. For another, it could mean that they compost, and they're good. And I was I see it just reminds me of a South Park episode where they all drove Priuses, and they just thought they were like better than everybody else. And it's just kind of what it reminds me of, because they just, you can just think, well, I'm doing my part. I'm not polluting the air as much as somebody who drives an SUV. But it really is a lot more than that needs to be done, especially as far as preserving the animal populations, because we are robbing them of their habitats at an alarming rate, as far as building, like even like just in my area, it used to be really rural, and all the time there are new, like, I wouldn't call it forest, but just areas with a ton of trees and wildlife that are just completely cleared out for another housing development. And it really makes you wonder, where are those animals going to go? Where are those, those plants are all gone. All of the, a lot of the insects and things like that are also gone. And it's happening really quickly everywhere else too. So like I said, that's a tough nut to crack. I mean, it's hard. Do you stop developing, new homes completely? Do you keep, you talked about preserving habitat, so do you make more protected habitats in specific places that people can't hunt or specifically develop on? Those are the sort of things I feel like we have to be looking into beyond just whether we're recycling or drive an electric car.
I agree, and there are a lot of great ideas out there. It's just so interesting that we're talking about this, because I had a conversation with my daughter about some of these ideas about going green and things that we can do. And one of the things that's really kind of tragic and sad about the United States is we have more empty houses than we do homeless people. So we actually have more homes than we need in the United States, but still new developments are cropping up, and then houses are being abandoned, condemned, but they're just sitting there empty. And one thing that I would like to see is instead of building new homes, going in and revitalizing old homes and making them affordable for people to go into them, or to buy them, or to rent them, or just live in them. And you'll see that that's actually happening in Detroit, Michigan, on a very small scale, but there's a community organization that is allowing people to buy homes for a very cheap, provided that they live in that home for a certain amount of time and become a Detroit resident. And I think that program is going to be successful. I believe they started another one in Kalamazoo, Michigan as well, but I'm not quite sure. And so that's something that very small that everyone can do. Everyone can decide as an individual that I'm not going to build a new construction, that I'm going to find a home that works with my needs, and then remodel it or refurbish it in hopefully in a green way, using recycled materials or renewables, looking into renewable energy and things like that, but not clearing away land to build a new home. The other thing, especially in rural areas in Michigan, I don't know, maybe you can speak about the rural areas in Washington, but nobody builds up anymore. And so everyone builds out. So you have these huge office buildings that are one story. And it's like, well, why are you buying all this land and building this one-story facility when you could go up 3 or 4 stories with the same amount of square footage? You're buying less land, you're clearing away less land. you have more parking space. I mean, I don't understand this kind of tendency not to build up anymore. And I feel like if you have to build, why not build up? Or why not refurbish? And so those are some of the things that I actually talk to my children about, because my daughter really is so concerned about conservation and the ecosystem and climate change, and she was always talking to me about, well, what can we do? What can we do? So I mean, I don't normally have these many ideas, but she's constantly asking me, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Well, you can, you know, not build a new construction. You can build up if you're a business owner and you need to expand. The other thing that I'm really excited about is it's starting to happen. We're seeing it in other countries, at least, are like green roofs, where you plant a garden on your roof.
Yes, I saw that too. Yes, yes.
So you cleared away the land to build this building, but there's still trees and plants that are purifying the air, and they're beautiful as well. And so, there's so much that we can do in it, but I do think going back to the habitat thing that we were talking about before, animals need large ecosystems with which to thrive. So we do have to start we have to do a better job of preserving the habitats that are still there. Thankfully, there are a large number of national forests in the United States, but it feels like it's not enough. One thing that we were talking about pre-show is in Michigan, there's this law that if you clear away wetlands, you have to you can fill in a wetland, but then you have to recreate that wetland somewhere else. And so it's really ridiculous, because you fill in this wetland and you basically kill the animal life and plant life in that area so that you can build your new construction. And then you basically dig in this new area, and then hopefully that area will become populated. I do believe you're obligated to put certain types of plants and whatnot in the area, but there's no guarantee that animals are going to migrate to that new wetland and thrive. And because in Michigan the law is that you can't take away any more of the wetlands, and so this way to skirt around that is, well, we can fill in this part of the wetland. All I have to do is create a new wetland of similar size somewhere else. So what we have, and you see this all over Kalamazoo, especially where I'm from, are these little plots of wetlands. And there's one on the corner of Center Ave and Portage Road, right next to the McDonald's. It's about 250 square feet of wetlands. What the hell is that going to do for anyone? You might have like 2 frogs living there, and you've done nothing to help the ecosystem when you're taking a habitat for an animal that has to be huge in order for it to thrive, and reduce it down to this nothing just so you can say that you did something. And so that's kind of my soapbox. on that.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of feeble attempts at trying to fix, I don't think fix is the right word, but trying to fix some of the issues that we've caused as far as the environment and the different habitats for animals. And so I wonder, as far as your opinion, because we could probably go into climate change a little bit more after this, but there's a huge debate on climate change, and there are obviously a lot of people on one of the sides saying, you're wrong, this isn't a big deal, it's not going to affect us like you think it is. I know that you're a lot of scientists who have been dedicating your entire career to this, but I'm a politician and you're wrong.
Oh no. I don't know if I dropped in the call or if Amanda dropped. Oh, okay, she's coming back. Hold on a second. Okay, I was so scared because I'm the one with the bad internet connection. So when you dropped, I'm like, oh, I dropped. So I'm just sitting there for a minute, and then I realized I was still on.
Oh my God.
Sorry, everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but you're really low.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But I can hear you better now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know why that keeps happening to me. I am so sorry. I'm gonna have to talk to my husband, who has done tech support for like the last 18 years of his life, and say, "What the hell, man?" Because this happens way too much. Anyway, what I was saying is that we have a lot of people who are saying, this isn't a big deal, and the same thing with animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, what is it going to take for people to start realizing that this is a big deal? I mean, is it going to take a lot of animal species going extinct and it actually starting to affect us in a serious way? Or what do you think is going to actually wake everybody up to the fact that it is a huge problem?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, food and water shortages that are going to start killing off people, not just poor people, but people who are considered more affluent. It's going to have to affect rich people, I think, before anything is done.
Okay.
That's just the way our society is set up. We don't do anything unless it starts hurting rich white people. And I love the commentary around the Ebola scare.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what happened. Ebola was a problem, has been a problem in Africa for a while now, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody did anything about it. Nobody I won't say nobody, but very little time, money, and effort was put into finding a cure or a vaccination for Ebola until a white person got sick
Mm-hmm.
and brought it back and came back to the United States. And I think that's very telling of our society and basically who makes the decisions and what drives their decisions. It's still a white male dominated society for sure.
Yeah, and definitely, especially a lot of the ideas on how we should deal with it, as far as completely closing our borders to anybody from other countries, and how somehow, like, that's just, I feel like, totally relates to the thinking as far as humans being superior. It's the same thing, like, Americans are superior. There's no way that millions of people having Ebola in other countries can affect us if we just close our borders. There's no way. It doesn't make any sense. I never understood that, how they thought, like, okay, we're a globalized country, we have a globalized economy, and more than just travelers coming and going to this country, like, it's not that cut and dry. And I just think it's funny that they think that it's that easy. We're just going to close our borders, and the disease, it's going to hit a wall, and it's not going to be able to go over it.
In order to do that, nobody would be able to leave or enter the country.
Exactly.
How are you going to do that?
Exactly, and it's the same thing, I feel like, with goods, right? We get a lot of our goods, and it's not necessarily that you're going to get Ebola from a banana, but like I said, you can't trade with other countries without interacting with them. So, so it's just, it's just really ridiculous thinking by people who, I don't know, they're obviously not very smart and don't understand how the diseases work.
or just how dependent we really are on other countries.
Yes.
Just because your food example,
Mm-hmm.
we could grow. I believe I'd have to look this up again, but there was a point in time where we could grow all of our food for ourselves, but we don't.
Right.
Because it's cheaper to buy rice from China or coffee from Mexico, because labor is cheaper there. Farming and FDA standards are different. Not that those things don't matter once those foods come into the country, but as far as the regulation of farming, it's not as tight, and therefore those crops can be produced more cheaply. Yeah.
More cheaply.
More cheaply. Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I want to say that. And so we are dependent on other countries for food, oil, um, electronics.
Yeah.
Um, so we would have to completely change um, our infrastructure, where we get our food, um, who's making our electronics. What's the other example I gave?
Oh God.
Oh, oil.
Oh yeah.
We would have to invest heavily in renewable energy and come up with a plan to implement that, or including reduction of energy use. So I think that it's a really great example, going back to the worldwide ecosystem and the worldwide animal kingdom that we belong to. We as humans all across the globe are also connected because we are trading with other countries. And we have families in other countries, and there's just globally there's a lot going on for us that's not going to change just because of Ebola, or it's not going to change because of climate change. We're still going to continue to be trading and with other countries and things of that nature. So yeah, that's my spiel there.
Okay, good. That's a good answer. I really like that you said that it really has to affect rich white people, rich white men. I'm gonna say let's say men, because they're the ones who are gonna make these decisions. But before it actually becomes an issue where we all finally take notice. Like one, oh my God, I hate my stupid references, but it just reminds me of in the Hunger Games, where like they have this revolution is brewing, and one of the ways that you know that it's getting bad is that some of the people from the Capitol like aren't able to buy shrimp for one of their parties, because they're like, one of the districts are rebelling. And so that's how you know, like, shit got real, because they're like, I tried to get shrimp for my party and I cannot, and this is insane. This is outrageous. We need to do something about this. That's just what it reminded me of.
I think that's a great reference, and I think you should keep making those references, because those kind of futuristic books and novels are written more as a warning to us. Like, this is a possible reality for us as people, as humans, as Americans even.
Mm-hmm.
And be careful of how you structure your society and social mobility and things like that. You have to be thinking about those things, because if you start if it oh man, I don't know how to say what I want to say, but yeah, if you're unaware of a problem, or you don't become aware of a problem until you can't buy that shrimp, then you're a part of it. You are definitely a part of the problem, and you need to take responsibility, and you have obligations to kind of do something to change that. And that's how I feel about people, about humans and our ecosystem. If we want to go back to that we do have an obligation to make sure that we aren't destroying our planet. And if you can't see the relevance to yourself as a person, let me word that differently. If you don't care, like, about the rhinos, let's say, I don't care about them, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Stop and think about how that would impact you. Then, if you have to take the most selfish standpoint, and that's a lot of times when I argue with people, this is the route I go. If we look at this from the most selfish standpoint, where it's all about me, and I want this and I want that, well, think about 10, 20 years down the road, and there's no drinking water because the ocean level has risen, especially for people in Michigan, has risen and gone into some of the Great Lakes and salinated the Great Lakes.
Wow.
Now I have a problem.
Yeah.
And so, even if you look at you and you take the most selfish standpoint, you can see that this is a problem, that then you need to do something about it. You need to participate in the solution instead of just waiting for it to impact you in a negative way.
Yeah. Yeah, plus I feel like, to be snarky here for a minute, we're not quite at the point yet where we can just abandon this planet and move on. We kind of are stuck here for at least a few more generations, I feel like. So you have to do something, like, yeah, I feel like in previous generations it's really easy to just push it off into the next generations and let them worry about it, but it is actually starting to impact us now. And so I think that, now is a really great time for people to realize just how important it is to do something. Like you said, it's not always easy to know exactly what to do, but definitely the first step is going to be people kind of waking up to what's going on and how things are changing, and then understanding how it will affect them in the future. And not just their kids, not just your kids. Don't be like, oh, we need to leave a better planet for our children and grandchildren. Like, it's affecting us right now, like I said. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And then, if you want to leave a better place for your children and your grandchildren, the other thing would be educating them to make a difference as well. And so turning them into, I don't want to say activists, but that would be one route. But teaching them how to be more green, as we were talking about going green, and what does that mean? Are we going to have a garden? Are we going to compost? Are we going to step up our recycling? What are we going to do as a family to make the world a better place? So I think there's more than just I need to make the world a better place for my children. I need to teach my children how to make the world a better place for their children as well.
Right.
So that there's constant improvement.
Yeah, you definitely have to.
That's what I want to add to that.
Yeah, you have to, I agree. You have to instill a sense of not just feeling obligated, but wanting to for all generations, and showing them that they should want to as well. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Yeah.
We don't disagree very much, do we? We might have to bring someone on the show sometime just to disagree with us.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think we should. We had on ProfitCast they have a lot of discussions, and they can get really heated. And so I'm a little glad that we don't have that on here, because I'm a little uncomfortable with confrontation, but at the same time, I do think that it's good to bring people in who have different opinions. So if you think that we are completely 100% wrong in everything we talked about, let us know. And maybe if you know what you're talking about, maybe you can come on the show. Maybe.
That's a great idea. I would love that, especially someone who's done some research. I would love to talk to you about any of the topics that we covered today.
And don't be scared to come on a show, because it's not like as intimidating as everybody thinks it is. I can't tell you how many people I've asked, and I'm saying this on the air because I want people to know. They're like, no, I'm not that good. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm like, you have a PhD. Freaking yes, you are. Like, you need to come on the show. Like, no, you can find somebody more qualified. I'm like, no, you're pretty qualified. You're gonna be fine. It's not Good Morning America. Like, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so I know it looks like Amanda and I don't prepare for the show sometimes, but we really do. We really do. And we go and we do a bunch of research. We share ideas. We talk about, well, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about that. And we talk pre-show. We don't have a script, which is why we don't look prepared. But neither one of us are biologists. Neither one of us are ecologists. We just went and we said we really want to do this show because we're interested in these different topics and how we fit in the animal kingdom and the world and the ecosystem, and we think this topic's important. So we went out as individuals and we did a bunch of research so that we can come on the show and talk to you about it today. And so if you've got a PhD in this stuff, you're way, way, way qualified. And we definitely want to talk to you.
Yeah, because essentially we're just borrowing sources from those PhDs and other people. We're just passing their information along to you. So if you're a direct source to that, that'd be fantastic. We'd love to have you on.
Exactly. So I think that's it for today. And, oh crap, I don't have my calendar up because I swear I'm prepared. The next show is on the 18th. I know that. And what topic did we choose?
Were we going to talk about biology or good versus evil? Which one do you want to do? Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about that because, and I've said this to you 1,000 times already, so you're probably tired of hearing it. But with my kids, and pop culture and books and movies and television, the idea of good versus evil, it's put into these two false dichotomies, and it puts kids in this position where they have to just judge things and judge people based on a really small amount of evidence and decide whether they're good or bad or good or evil. And the real world is so much more complicated than that. And so I want to talk about that and how you teach your kids the subjective idea of good versus evil. And there's probably going to be a lot of Harry Potter references. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not even going to pretend.
That's okay, because I'm going to bring in the comics. So,
Okay.
Okay. We're going to get into, like Mystique from X-Men is a great example of someone who is at both ends. Like, she's good in some ways and she's evil in these other ways, and just kind of the complexity of her personality. And that's one of the reasons why I love the X-Men so much, because they're all complicated and they're all conflicted characters. And they're not, you can't even, like, even Magneto, you can't even be like, well, he's evil, he's pure evil. Well, no, he's not. He was tortured by the Nazis. You got to give him some credit. And so don't worry, because you can talk about Harry Potter, because I'm going to kill our listeners with X-Men anyway.
Yes. Well, I've got a lot of my friends watch the show out of solidarity to me, even the ones that don't have kids. So thank you, friends. And they are really into Harry Potter and really into comics. So at least we've got a few people that aren't going to mind.
So it'll be a fun show. So definitely join us for that.
Yes.
We'll be geeking out.
Yep, definitely. I'm going to go brush up on my X-Men so I know like exactly what you're talking about. I know a little bit about X-Men, but not that much.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so thanks so much for watching the show. Again, we'll see you back in 2 weeks on the 18th. Make sure that you check us out on godlessfamily.com. Follow us on Twitter at godlessfamily, or you can get in touch with either Aubrey or I directly on our Twitter or Google+. If you have any questions or ideas for the show, we would love to hear it. And that's all, so I guess we'll see you guys later. Bye!
Bye!